So when you got out of that Listeria crisis, was it hard to get back into the market and have trust from customers again?
You got that phone call. I mean, it was an unexpected, one of those awful moments.
It was devastating. You put it in a minus 20 degree environment, you're not supposed to have pathogen. It just wasn't supposed to even be there. And so it was. Completely pulled, I think, a little over 8 million gallons of ice cream. 8 million gallons, and destroyed it. You're wondering, will they be there? Will the consumer still support the product? It's the only flavor that I know of that 2 ladies got into a fist fight over the last pint of Bride's Cake in Louisiana, where they had to call the police and they get handcuffed and taken out.
This is something.
Over 1 pint of Bride's Cake. So,
how about that?
So neither one of them got the...
To consistently meet the expectation that drives that passion can get you into trouble.
Life is wild. Faith, marriage, parenting, work, all of it. 1 minute you're inspired, the next you're in chaos. That's why I started No Longer Nomads, the podcast that throws you into the deep end of real stories and authentic truth. We're talking ex-witches who found freedom, former Muslims who met Jesus, mountaineers who even survived the wilderness for 6 days, and much, much more. No Longer Nomads, because no one was meant to wander alone. New episodes drop every Tuesday at 5 a.m. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of No Longer Nomads. We are thrilled to have you. Welcome back to another great episode. We've got an icon in the house. We've got a legend in the house. We've got Ricky Dickson, former CEO and president of Bluebell Ice Cream, Bluebell Creamery to be exact. And I'm joined by my good friend and a co-host today, Parker Dale. Welcome, Parker.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're thrilled to have you guys. And Ricky, thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to get into your story. It's fascinating. And let's start from the beginning. Let's start in maybe not the beginning. Let's start at Baylor University.
Okay.
Yeah, you get a call, or you're in class, and you're given an assignment to study a company. And we can kind of pick it up there.
Okay. Well, I would jump right in, and the topic, or I guess the title of my book, One Scoop at a Time, really pivots from that. I like to say that I chased a girl to Baylor, of all things. I thought she was going to be the one, and God said, no, I'm using her to get you to Baylor. I didn't really have a plan. When you're in high school, you're living, life in a large way, but at the same time, I just thought, well, that's what you do. You chase your girlfriend to the college, and we got there, and the first week we break up. There we are, there I am in Waco, and again, Baylor was an incredible experience, so it was really God's way of getting me to Baylor. But in a marketing class, I decided to go business. I thought, well, you can't go wrong with business. I still didn't really have a thought of where I'm going to land, but I knew God had a plan, and so I was really trying to pay attention and not get maybe too foggy about the girl situation and go straight to what God do you have for me to do. And in this marketing class, it was a consumer relation class.
Okay,
and our assignment was to follow a company for the full semester on how they relate to the consumer. And so I went back to my apartment. I call my dad, which is, I guess, what you do. Dad, I got this project. I'm in Waco. Do you have any idea of a company that I can follow for the whole semester?
Yeah.
At the time of that phone call, he was reading an article about this little ice cream company down in Brenham called Bluebell. Now, in Waco, we didn't have Bluebell. In fact, Bluebell at the time, and this is late 70s, even though it started in 1907, it was a very small regional brand. And so it was in Houston, Austin, and it had just gone into Dallas, but it wasn't, it was not in Waco. So, but I thought, who doesn't like ice cream? That sounds fantastic. So I called down and got the vice president of the company on the phone and said, I'm a Baylor student doing this class. Can I come down and do an interview? And he said, when can you be here? Let's do this.
So how many employees did Bluebell have at that time?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
Because you just alluded to they weren't the powerhouse that they've become.
I would say, and again, this is a rough guess, but less than 1,000. It'd have to be. I need to research that because I have it on the back end, but I don't necessarily have it on the front end. But we went into Houston, and we actually started as a butter company in 1907. 4 years later, we started making ice cream.
I remember that in the book.
And from
so
there,
that's wild.
Go ahead.
The VP that you called, did he have any pushback? Like, who are you? Like,
No.
or was he just sure? He recognized you were a college student that needed. Yeah.
I think it was the uniqueness of it. Now today, in fact, in the role when I became vice president of marketing and sales, and then president, we would get more calls. Like, hey, I'm doing a project. I'd love to come, and so we would get them set up because I remember, well, that's how I got my start.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
So you told them to eat rocks or something? No.
Well, maybe Rocky Road.
Rocky Road. Yeah.
Sorry, not that one. But the fact that it was ice cream, and with ice cream being fun, and I'm thinking other students, what are they going to find?
Sure.
Ice cream is going to, and relating to the consumer, it was just a natural fit.
Yeah.
But it was really what I saw when I went down. Gave me, the full tour of the plant and showed me. I thought even the president of the company, Ed Cruzy, came in and sat down and kind of looked at me and said, "Who are you?
Yeah.
Why are you here?"
Yeah.
And you had to know Ed. That was just his way of kind of checking you out. So it came time to graduate, and I was leaning towards advertising, possibly public relation, or ice cream. And I thought, I'm going to go back, put an application in, who knows? Yeah. And so I submitted my application, and they called and said, we have an opening. You can go to Dallas or Houston. And I chose Dallas. It was being that it was a brand new market. I thought, let's go have some fun. So
at the time, did this have that feeling of a very exciting company? Because now it's like a powerhouse, as you were saying. And I think a big thing too is, it sounds like the culture was great. It sounds like a great culture there. And when they were taking someone from Baylor on to come take a peek at their company, it
was a company that had a lot of Texas A&M Aggies, and I gave them a hard time. Did I fit a quota?
That's right.
You had to have one Baylor student, one Longhorn. No, I'm kidding.
There's a Baylor Bear right there.
All right,
so
fantastic. With City Bears, that's right. We got to stay together.
It's dangerous out there.
It is. It was everything you just said. It was the culture.
Yeah.
What I was looking for is number one, and I'll stress this, is I truly did believe God had a purpose and has a purpose for my life. And I had been raised that way in a Christian family, and mom and dad, as much as going to church was what you did, it was so much deeper than that. It's how do you walk with Christ? How do you have a relationship with Christ?
Yeah.
And so in the good times and bad times, and that's great until you're out on your own for the first time in college. Yeah. And you think, you know what, I got to make my own decisions, and you live with those consequences from that. But I think that the culture, what I saw, it was definitely more than just making ice cream. And just that little bitty window of opportunity, I could tell it's truly as if they were making ice cream to take home. Now, we're going to make ice cream today, and if we have anything left over, we'll sell it. Now, we did come out with a phrase later, we eat all we can and sell the rest.
That's right.
I didn't come up with that by any means, but I thought it's the same kind of concept. We take a lot of pride in not necessarily making ice cream, but making memories.
Yeah,
you remember when you eat
right.
a bowl of homemade vanilla, and it takes you somewhere. And, again, it could be the celebrating an anniversary or birthday, or it could be erasing a breakup in a relationship, or
get a tub of ice cream.
That's right.
Pickles and ice cream for pregnant women if they want. Yeah, my wife never had that though. She didn't have that craving. But we were talking pre-roll, and so one of my favorite flavors is the cookie two-step, and I also love the mint chocolate chip. So you had an awesome story about that as you were trying to, bring it from this cookies and cream, and then you have the cookie dough. I'd love to hear that story.
Well, absolutely, and it was a fun one. We made a flavor in our ice cream parlor that when people would come to Brenham and take tours, we'd have 250,000 people on an annual basis come through. But there was a flavor that kind of stood out. It was called Blue Monster, and it was cookies and cream and chocolate chip cookie dough put together with a little blue fun added to the coloring. And so, especially children, when they would eat it, they wouldn't turn the inside of their mouth blue, and parents hated it, but kids loved it.
Yep.
It was a fun flavor, but we thought, it's really doing well. Let's maybe we should try to market this, and yet we didn't think the blue part of it would be something that would go over very well. So it came down to we were going to rename it. We had a name picked out, and it just didn't fit. And so I gave a challenge to the marketing team, and I said, y'all go home. It was on a Friday. Go home, talk to your kids, talk to the neighbor kids, talk to the dog. I don't care where the names come from, but just start calling and leave them on the recording when you call in. We had a little marketing number that you could call, and so we're on our way that night to actually a Houston Astros baseball game, and there's a traffic jam, and we're stuck in traffic, and so we're with another couple, and I said, let's just start coming up with names. And so in that conversation, my beautiful wife happens to say, well, what about Texas two-step? I like that a lot, but I don't know. It's just Texas. I mean, it needs to maybe be a little bit broader, although we came out with one later called sheet cake, but it was like Texas sheet cake.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes that works, and sometimes it may not. Anyway, in that conversation, she said, well, why not cookie two-step? I said, baby, I think we're onto something. So
there you go.
She still get royalties?
Yeah, she got tons of royalties. She got to have dinner with me every night when I came home.
You guys flew in on a private jet. Very kind of you to come join us.
I got her like one of the, a carton is flat until it's made into its shape, and so we took a carton and framed it. Said, here's name the claim. So that's
I love that, and that flavor shot up. I mean, to rivaled number one, right?
It came out on fire, and it's still out today. It's done incredibly, incredibly well. It's fun. Kids like it. Adults like it. The combination of the two.
That's awesome.
My
kids were up on the counter last night eating it, so they liked it.
Oh yeah, it's in our freezer.
Kids.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
nice.
The only thing I like better, like we talked about, is I like the peppermint bark.
Oh, peppermint bark. Yeah,
I
haven't had that one.
Not Christmas anymore.
Yeah, it's Christmas.
It's really good.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get out there this Christmas season. So it's only 1 month they do that, just Christmas time?
Well, we usually come out with the Christmas flavors around October.
Oh, okay.
And try to have it all the way up until right at Christmas. You run into the danger zone on certain flavors.
Sure.
That if it's related to Christmas, that when you go past it, although peppermint we try to keep out to the end of January.
Okay.
I've been retired for 2 years, but I still talk in the present tense, so forgive me for that.
We
They're still family.
I love that.
Anyway.
Going back to you got the job. You mentioned you were headed to Dallas. You picked Dallas to help open that market up. And so I imagine the challenge of that's not a small town, right? I mean, you're in charge of opening up a brand of ice cream to a brand new market. Talk to us about that. What was that like? What were your biggest obstacles and the fears and all that, and then where that led to?
Sure. Luckily, they were here 2 years before I came, so they had already done a lot of the paving of the way. The success of Bluebell has really been based around the consumer. And when I say that, I love this phrase, and I'm learning that no one's ever heard it, or it's an older phrase, but we were brought up in the culture of it's a cinch by the inch, hard by the yard. Cinch by the inch, hard by the yard. So what does that mean? And I think really that going back to the word culture, it's Bluebell was not about let's be number one nationwide today. It's let's be the very best we possibly can be where we're at. And we'll worry about tomorrow.
Amen.
Tomorrow we'll grow at a very slow and methodical pace, and that's why since 1907 we're still going strong. But we're only in 23 states out of the 50, so we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
So going into Dallas, it was a consumer pull. You have a consumer demand, and you go up and you're still the new kid on the block. Ice cream has changed a lot. If you think back in 70s, 80s, Borden's ice cream was one of the leading brands.
And
nationwide, Breyers had come in, and Bluebell has never paid for space, never what they call slotting, to slot it into the space. And so when I came, in fact, at the time Safeway was here, and I remember we were not in Safeways. And they finally said, okay, we'll put you in. We'll give you 2 or 3 rows. So now, when I say rows, it was the old coffin cases. Now they're all in uprights. The coffin cases aren't good for ice cream because the air conditioning can actually push the cold out, and we had a lot of damaged product over a period of time. So you'll see most all ice cream companies are now in uprights. I'm diverting, so forgive me.
No, it's
Keep
good.
me on track.
We like the details. It's good.
Yeah. Well, so going in, and it was fun because you would go in and try to work your 2 or 3 rows and what flavors. You had to have homemade vanilla. That was your staple. And then cookies and cream came out about the time. And in fact, Bluebell was the first to package cookies and cream.
Was it really?
Back. We found it, I think, if I remember right, and again, forgive me for the law, but in an ice cream parlor on the East Coast. Came back and connected with Nabisco. We did the Oreo cookie. And we weren't able to buy the Oreos in bulk. And so we had two ladies stand all day ripping open packages of Oreos and dumping them into a fruit feeder that would grind them up and put into ice cream. We have an iconic picture of these two ladies. That's what they did. But that'd be tempted. Keep a glass of milk close by.
Yes.
There you go.
No.
So you were there for 40 plus years.
Yeah, 43 years.
43 years. So I think a message for even the audience out there listening is just like what I hear, loyalty on your part to a company and totally buying in and through the ups and the downs. And I think today you have so many people that want to jump ship. They've been at a place for a couple of years, ready to jump ship. But maybe you could speak to that person. What was some of the benefits of pushing through some of the hard times and just sticking it out?
Yeah, and I'll add as well, like in your book, One Scoop at a Time, you deal a lot with fear.
Yeah,
that fear, and you address it head on. More times than not, if not all the times, you're talking about you're turning it over to Christ, right?
Right.
But nonetheless, it's evident reading your book and hearing your story that fear was there. So it wasn't like you hit Dallas and it was all great.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And here you sit. I mean, it was time and time and time again. Seemingly almost like every chapter there's something about fear. But so to Josh's request, if you could tie in fear as well, because I think Josh is right. Like when we feel that fear, whatever the situation may be, it could be work, it could be home, it could be relationships, it could be school, it could be whatever. The knee jerk is to shut it down and go away.
Or it's not
right?
working.
It's not working.
Yeah.
I'm scared. What if? My dad used to tell me growing up that, Parker, if you die before I do, I'm going to write what if on your tombstone. Because I used to be that chronic, well, what if? But what if? In other words, what are you laughing at? And so, in other words, it's like the fear of what if, the fear of the unknown, which can paralyze you. I'm telling you.
No.
That's why, we were talking before we started shooting that of all the underlinings in this book I've done, it's all about the fear part, because I can relate to that.
Right.
I'm not as distinguished as you are and accomplished, but nonetheless, but fear is the basic human element of it can impede your growth. It can fight or flight, can cause you to run. To Josh's point, sticking with a company for 43 years, or sticking with a marriage for 43 years, or sticking with anything for 43 years, in spite of the fear, is getting rare.
Yeah. No, that's so true, and it's a great question. It really. I go back to my bringing up of just following where God is leading. And so I think in our life, when we hit those moments in time, even all the way to the very end, and I'll go all the way to retirement, God, you put me in this position to run this company, in which I never had on my radar.
Yeah.
It was probably the most humbling of any question that was asked. But let me come, I'm going to end back with that. So let me back up at a moment in my career, really, which I have it in the book, and I still look back as probably my defining moment of listening and then being obedient to what I believed God was telling me. I was in San Antonio. I'd started in Dallas and had moved from Dallas to Fort Worth, and we were now opening up in San Antonio, and this is my home, and so they said, would you like to come back 24 years old and open up the branch in San Antonio? And I'm thinking, this is just incredible. 2 miles from my mom and dad's house. I'm in my backyard, per se. And was just, everything about it was just incredible. San Antonio, 10th largest city. HEB was there, and we were working to get space and all the things you do to build a market. And then I got a phone call to say, would you come to Oklahoma? We're going to go outside the state for the first time with a branch. And this was kind of a stealth. We're not saying anything to anybody, but we'd like for you to open up the market up there. And I'm thinking, really? This is comfortable. I'm really liking this.
What else you got?
Yeah, this is good. But at the same time, they said down the road, as we grow, this could be a new area, a new region, and is for opportunity to come. And so you're faced with a decision: do you stay where you're not necessarily comfortable? Because there was positives and negatives, or ups and downs, even with starting a market. But going into a brand new, state, new territory, that had its excitement plus challenges as well. But the little bit of the hook in the back of my mind was, that there's growth. There's potential to grow with the company. And so I went. I said, we're going to, this is where God's leading. And so got to Oklahoma City, and it got real quiet. Now, the market was, we were getting started and all the things that go along with starting a market. But that talk about a new region and growth and promotion, days went to weeks, went to months, went to years. It was like 2 or 3, 4 years. And I'm thinking, what happened to that conversation? Yeah. And so then I get the phone calls saying we had this big meeting. We're all coming in. We'd like to talk to you after dinner. And so I'm thinking, this is it. This is the moment. So I'm pumped.
Here we go.
I can't tell you much about anything other than this was a real pivotal, exciting time until I walked in the room. And I could tell immediately that this, there wasn't any balloons, there wasn't any, not that there would be, but this,
no ice cream.
There was no ice cream at all, which is never a good sign. So in that conversation, though, it was not about being promoted. It was just the opposite. It was, these are the things. It was a full page and a half handwritten, single-spaced, of things that they saw in me that I wasn't doing, or things that they were hoping that I would do that I wasn't picking up on yet. And it was, man, you're talking about taking the air out of the room.
Yeah.
It really did. So I remember going back, sitting on the end of my bed, and having the moment you just said, I was angry. I mean, God, you brought me here. This is where
feeling.
I thought I'm supposed to be. I thought that I've listened to you and I've done what I thought you would want me to do. And during that little, I don't want to say pity prayer, I'm angry. And the thing I love about God is that He allows that. You can approach the throne of the Creator of the universe, and yet He loves you more than you can comprehend. Yeah. And so right in the middle of that, I really remember it was what I call the thump moment, where He said, in my mind, I didn't bring you here for a promotion. I brought you here for my purpose. Mm. And I just sat there. And again, I wasn't real happy about it, but I thought, if God has a purpose, and that's where I started way back, then why am I arguing over a title? There was part of me that thought, why don't I just walk out that door?
Sure.
They brought me here. They must have seen something. And then it hit me again. They must have seen something not to fire me. And so there was just this moment, a truly true moment that said, okay,
it's a defining moment.
Whatever you want, I don't care what the position is, I'm going to be the very best I can be at it. When that position was finally filled a few years later, I was actually running the production facility in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I was calling on the Walmart account, but I was now in production, so the promotion came and went to somebody else. Mm. But I will tell you, I was living large. I mean, I loved the people in production. Yeah. It was almost like a new job.
Yeah.
Now fast forward, and I'll land the plane.
No, that's
20
good.
years later, when in the boardroom, the president of the company, third generation Cruzy, Paul Cruzy, says, I'm going to be retiring. And they turn and they say, would you step in? We're going to name you as president of the company.
Were you looking behind you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, you're talking to me.
There's some other fun stories. I called my wife later and said, they just asked me to be president. She goes, really, what's going on? Never will forget that. Thanks, babe. No, she was very supportive. But I thought, though, if it wasn't for being faithful to stepping out of sales into production and having 6 years seeing the other side of the company.
That's right.
And that experience 20 years later, I wouldn't have been in that position where they turned and said, hey, would you take this role as president? And that's when I knew that I knew. God had, one scoop at a time had led me from one spot to the next. Now, I will tell new managers, new employees, this may be a 40-year plus career for you, or it may be a stepping stone. But the key is listen to where God is leading you. Yeah. And if you're being faithful to it, just embrace, dream big. I'm big on dreaming big. At the same time, give it all you have in what you do and be the very best you can at what you do. And those things will come if they're supposed to come.
That's amazing.
Be the best you can be at what you're doing.
I love that. Well, and there may be some business owners out there that are looking at some of their employees and their performance. They could probably have a single-spaced paper of all the things that, they could be improving upon or whatever. But it can be part, maybe a business owner is just going, hey, it's not worth it, and fire him. But the fact,
I got one of those pieces of paper for my wife this morning.
Oh, man.
Things I can improve on.
Well, let's unpack that now.
Audacity,
we're going to shift the interview to But and also that speaks to your character and your, just for you to look at that, have the time to be angry, be upset, because that's a very human response, and then go, you know what? I'm going to work in these areas. And then the fact that you're able to see another part of the business
And well-rounded.
And well-rounded as you were when you stepped into that.
No question it
role.
helped. So. I mean, because again, stepping in the role of president and doing sales for so long, and that I called it my bicycle. You know, when you get on it, you just remember how to ride a bike. And so sales and going out, you give me half gallon and a spoon, I'm a pretty good salesman. If I go by myself, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
But give me a half gallon of homemade vanilla or a cookie two-step, and I can usually sell that pretty good.
That's awesome.
But the production side, I think the thing that was so unique about that is the expectation in that carton.
Yeah.
Is every consumer has an expectation. So we had a saying, we want to consistently meet the expectation that drives that passion. That was my motto. I want you to be able to, every time you eat homemade vanilla or whatever the flavor is, mint chocolate chip, cookies and cream, that, this is what I remembered it to be. And then some. And so, and I learned that when you're on the production side, those on the sales side are expecting it. So you better be right. So
I love that. They always say when when God calls you, he prepares you, you know, and so in your position, when you step into this new role, did you feel prepared or do you go, okay, Lord, I'm leaning on you here?
Oh, B. No question. In fact, I would say every single day that I was, not that I didn't as in sales, but you do get, I don't want to say comfortable because it comes natural.
Sure.
But when they asked me to be president, I changed my whole, even my prayer life, my early in the morning, I'd get up and walk, especially when we hit some tough times. And we went through some struggles, no question. We were coming out of the Listeria issue of 2015. We were back in most of the markets, but not all the markets. We didn't have all of our product line that we had previously had. So we still had some steps to take and really take the baton that Paul Cruzy had led us out of in 2015 and continue to enhance.
Yeah.
We did some incredible things to make, again, it's ice cream, so you shouldn't have to worry if it's safe or not.
Sure.
But we've done some incredible things to take that to a whole new level.
Yeah.
That not just best in class, but first in class as a model to the food industry to say these are things.
So when you got out of that Listeria crisis, was it hard to get back into the market and have trust from customers again, or was it? Because I mean, I'm a consumer.
Go
ahead.
Set the stage for the Listeria. Like, I remember reading the book about you got that phone call. Like, I mean, it was an unexpected, one of those awful moments, seemingly at the time. But some of the audience might not know about the Listeria.
Yeah, it's fun when I go to colleges today and talk because they were like 10, or they don't remember as much as maybe what we do. And of course, we lived it, so it was devastating. We were humbled beyond anything. I want to say humbled coming back, but it was just devastating to have a product that was out there and the trust that you talk about in that product. Ice cream is a very low risk.
Yeah.
You take ice cream or the raw mix and you pasteurize it. You put it in a minus 20 degree environment. You're not supposed to have pathogen. Yeah. So in the industry worldwide, it just wasn't supposed to even be there, and so it was. And so we had to do some things to really. We brought in microbiologists. We brought help from the FDA, state, all the anybody and everybody that we could talk to take it to a new level. There were some things we could do immediately. We shut down April 20th to April 21st, 2015. Completely pulled, I think, a little over 8 million gallons of ice cream out of the market. 8 million gallons. So that's 16 million half gallons. If you put it just half gallons, if you can comprehend that. And destroyed it.
And that was sent back to you guys?
Yes, and then we sent it to landfills. I mean, we took it completely out of the market and said we got to start over. So we took up the floor, we took down walls, ceilings. And listened to experts in a whole new way that I think we were all learning. I mean, even from a microbiologist standpoint, that helping guide and navigate through that. We didn't want to just put a Band-Aid on it.
Sure.
When we came back, we wanted to say this is a program, and today, everything we make, we test. We take tests during the morning, do a composite. We test in the afternoon, do a composite, and don't release it until those results come back. It's not 100% unless you test every single half gallon, but you're way up in the high 90s. Yeah. But it's just a different approach. So saying all that, hopefully I'm answering kind of the question. But going back to that cents by the inch, okay. When we came back in September of that year, so we were down from April to September, you're wondering, will they be there? will the consumer still support the product?
Yeah.
And, it's praise God. We put our heads down. We worked as hard as we could, and when we came back, we were all out on routes that day, and there were people lined up at 4 a.m. from the front of the door of the store. In some cases, at a 24-hour store, they were lined up from the ice cream cabinet all the way out the door.
Golly.
And it just made us want to be that much better. That we have a responsibility to be everything that we say, and so.
Did you have to convince the grocery stores as well, like the HEBs and all that, to
It's a great question. I'm going to be sticky on how I answered that.
All right, here we go.
What was interesting is a lot of the grocery stores, we didn't, you went through a whole summer without Bluebell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were mad.
They had to answer that question on their own. Well, you just saw what it was like not to have it, and now we're back. Okay. And so I'll leave it with that, but I'll just say that it was a very
trying time.
Well, it was trying. At the same time, it was glad that we were able to come back, because a lot of people didn't think that was going to be possible.
Yeah.
And so, again, to do it the right way meant that you're going to have to take longer to get where you need to be. But in true, honest, I mean, not that I'm not being honest, but in true, it's a brand that's more than just a product that's on the shelf.
That's true.
And so, whether it be H-E-B or Kroger or Brookshire's or whoever, whatever the chain, it complemented their overall store to have, and so it was a great combination of. I want to say kumbaya. That's maybe a little too close. But,
I got a question. So, with your time at Bluebell, you're working on all aspects of the inside of the company. What is it about Bluebell? Can you put your fingerprint on that? What is it that some companies or podcasts or brands or authors, some companies, they have like a cult-like following, right? Like a following that just is so invested in the brand and the product. And sometimes it's the brand and it's just, the product, I don't eat it all the time, but I'm such a big fan of Bluebell, or fill in the blank. What do you think, can you put your finger on that? Because when you enter back in, it seems like people are already, what's the secret sauce? I'm sure there's maybe some listeners out there going, what does it take,
And I could probably go 2 or 3 different roads, go down 2 or 3 different roads per se. I will always start with the people, because I really truly believe the people behind what made it. What I saw when I first went and did that interview, there was something different. And so to put my finger on it, I really can't, other than it truly was what they were taking home. And so that pride factor that went into it, yes, using the freshest and finest ingredients, you can make ice cream 100 different ways, and I don't want to get into all the ins and outs of how much overrun do you put, how much butterfat do you use, and all those things. We want it to be an enjoyable experience. We want you, this goes back to the cruising philosophy, but to get a bowl and to eat a bowl of ice cream, and if you want a little bit more, you can get up and go get it and enjoy a little bit more, or you're satisfied with what you had. But it takes you somewhere, and I think that the flavor creations, we've had some...
What's the most bizarre?
Well, you mentioned pickles and cream or pickles. We had that back in the 40s, but more of a kind of a gimmick. I like to say to people it was really no big deal.
There we go.
I had to get you in there. I went way out. It wasn't kosher either. So we'll stop with the jokes there. But probably one of the more bizarre that we really thought it tasted well. We went through a day of sampling new flavors for the following year, and it was the last flavor that we tasted. We didn't even want to try it.
Yeah.
And I'm leading up to the name, but they brought it in and we started eating it and said, this really is good. And it was a peanut butter based flavor with peanuts in it, and I think it was a strawberry variant that was rippled through called peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly.
You couldn't give that one away.
And no one wanted it.
It tasted great, but it just, people would call in and say, did you cut the crust off? It was like a sandwich, So that was probably the only flavor I can really think of that just, we ate a lot of it at the house.
Oh, I'm sure.
We had to. But there's been some great flavors. Probably one of the more unique ones comes in a flavor called Bride's Cake.
Okay.
We came out with Groom's Cake, Bride's Cake. And Bride's Cake, you'll love this because it's a Louisiana story. It's the only flavor that I know of that 2 ladies got into a fist fight over the last pint of Bride's Cake. in Louisiana where they had to call the police and they get handcuffed and taken
This
out.
is something.
Over 1 pint of Bride's cake. So,
How about that?
So neither one of them got the...
to
neither one of them
consistently
got it.
meet the expectation of drives, that passion can get you into trouble. So
This isn't a very exciting question for the people, but I just want to know personally, when did the pints become a thing? Because those are brilliant. I remember when a buddy of mine had a pint of some ice cream, and I'm like, you don't have the whole gallon. You're sitting there on the couch. You got a little...
portion control or a little bit more portion. I think that, the half gallon, that's
Did
my
those
portion.
do well out of the gate? I mean,
yeah, we've had them for a long time. Again, we go back to shelf space, and what you buy and what you don't buy and what you have. And we usually don't have a lot of shelf space when it comes to pints. And in some cases we do, but it depends upon the store. You'll have 2 or 3 shelves. You don't have as many flavors in pints, although we're trying to expand that one. I think they just came out, when I say they, because this year, so we had to run to the store. Honey vanilla was so it's a very simple flavor, but it's only available in a pint. So,
okay.
Can I go back to the Listeria for a second?
Yeah, yes, of course. Let's do
Go
it.
back from fun pints.
We don't need to go.
to
We don't need to go any more into the pints.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say we don't need to go anymore on the stereo.
I'm thinking like as a leader. So
It's all good.
you get that phone call and. I mean, the bottom just falls out, right? And immediately, hey, there's something serious here. We're in trouble. And then you said, I think that was April the 20th or 21st, I believe, and you were off the shelves until September. So a number of months go by. In that time period, you've got a lot of time to think, to plan. What are you doing in that time? I understand, like corporately, you're doing damage control, and you're doing you said putting in new flooring, new ceilings, and all the rest. Improving the whole inspection, for lack of better terms, process. But for you personally, you're going through that. There's a lot of uncertainty that's crept in at this point. Hey, are we really going to rebound from this? What's going to happen? How are you preparing yourself, spiritually, emotionally, and all the rest during that? Because I can imagine, especially in the early days, end of April going into May and June, there had to be some questions around.
And it's
question.
It's a very good question, a very real question, because as iconic as the brand is, if we call it a brand, more importantly, the product itself. We believed that if we could get the product back in a way that the consumer will trust it, that we could get back going again. But what does that mean? And so during those months, that's exactly what we were asking, and we were learning in the process. We thought you go in and you clean and you start making again and you test the end result, and if it's it comes back, it's good to go, that we'd be back in the market within a couple of weeks. And what we learned is that's the Band-Aid.
That's the Band-Aid. Uh-huh.
So from where I was, and being at that time Vice President of Sales and Marketing, it was, for the very first time in the history of the company, we had to lay off some employees. We had to shut down some markets. We had to furlough a lot of employees that, look, we're going to be back. We don't know when. Go get work. But we actually paid them a good amount of money, not quite their salary, but yet go find work. But when we call you, we need you back.
Yeah.
And then so you're mapping out that strategy. Okay, now when we open up, what plan is it going to be? And then how many half gallons can you make? I mean, when you're talking selling millions and millions of half gallons, and all of a sudden you only have one plant that's running at full capacity still, it's not just filling the pipeline, but can you continue to fill the pipeline?
Yeah.
So we actually retraced the steps that we started back in 1907, or really Houston back in 1960. And what I mean by that is Alabama was the first to come back because it was the one that we had issues in Broken Arrow, we had issues in Brenham. We did the same work, though, in Alabama. So we're making ice cream in Sylacauga, Alabama. And we felt like, look, if you're making it there, you're going to have to sell it in that area.
Yeah.
You can't just ship it back. But we started in Houston and Austin and Alabama. With 5 flavors. And I love this. We had homemade vanilla, Dutch chocolate, Great Divide, which is homemade vanilla and Dutch chocolate in the same carton. We counted that as a new flavor, a different flavor. And I think it was strawberry and butter pecan, and that's what we had 5 flavors. And that was it, and we would bring it back in to start in September. I want to say then it was I don't. This is terrible. I'm getting older too. That's why I retired. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, then Broken Arrow, and by November we opened back up in Brenham. But we were doing each market similar to, or each expansion like we did. We came up to Dallas, then we went into Oklahoma and Louisiana, and to eventually, okay, we're able to make enough for these markets. Now let's add another market, and we were calling employees back. And so that is a long answer to
No, it's a good answer. I mean, I asked the question because I've seen, you and I've talked about this, Ricky. I've seen companies go under because of things like Listeria. And the fact that y'all were able to navigate it back, and then, stick to the plan, right? And keep moving forward is pretty phenomenal because it was a high-profile incident.
And to handle it with excellence, too. Transparency, excellence. I mean, you created a new standard for the company moving forward, that everything gets tested, like you were saying, twice a day before it goes out, which I'm sure is, a lot of people appreciate that. But, wow. I mean, to be able to navigate such a difficult time and come through it.
So were there any times you were laying in bed at night thinking, I need to ask you what do you think? I don't know. Like, I ain't so sure this is going to work. Or did you have that full?
I'll say it this way. This maybe help answer a question you asked earlier that I can maybe incorporate together. One of the passages in Scripture that I've gone to is my fear. There's Philippians 4, 6, and 7 that I absolutely love. I'll sign every book. Don't be anxious about about anything, but everything, prayer and praise.
Yeah.
Present your request to God, and He will give you the peace that passes all understanding in your heart. So I love that one, but I love the story about Jesus when He gets on the boat and He says, "We're going to go across the lake." Where's He go? He goes down. He goes to the back of the boat, gets on the pillow, and goes to sleep. And then what happens? The waves come, the water's coming in. I can just see the disciples. He got whatever buckets he would call back then. And finally they go and they scream at Him, "Wake up! Do you not care we're dying?" And I love that because God's the one. Jesus is the one who said, "Let's go across." Jesus not okay. And so He wakes up, and what's He do? He has that moment. Okay, storms be still, like kind of a mic drop moment, and they go, "Wow." Even the waves and the seas, he commands. I didn't do very good on my. That was a real loose translation, but my point in all that is I call that. I ran track. I call that my second wind.
Yep.
And so when you're faced with fear, when you are faced with, oh my gosh, this, and the world does seem like it's coming in and from all angles. And you can get to the moment that you can curl up next to Jesus. If He can sleep, then by gosh, I'm going to sleep too. And I would literally, in my roughest times of my life, I mentally picture that as I get in bed. And Jesus, I'm just going to curl up. You got control. And so why I call it my second wind is if you ever ran track and you run to a point where you can't run anymore.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you get this second wind. That's that peace that passes all understanding.
I love that.
And in those moments, as we would lay in bed going, I don't know if we're going to make it. I knew that God's still in control and He has a plan. Yeah. And if this is the end of the road, then He's got a new road that we're going to go down.
I love that.
Yeah, you write here, 2 things I underline when I write. This is you talking, Ricky, when you writing. When you finally get to a place where you can totally let go and allow God to turn your fears into faith, He will provide a peace that surpasses all understanding. Love that. Second, you write, I have learned that when things don't make sense, get as close to God as you can. Leave fear at the door and walk with an unexplainable faith. That's that.
I'm sure there's people listening to this now that need to hear that, And
oh yeah, I could keep reading stuff that you.
I did track in high school. I had a track career, and they're probably not talking about me in Monument, Colorado anymore. But I know that feeling of that second wind, and so great analogy. I just think that what you've done is incredible. So after this, when did you take the helm? After this Listeria crisis, when did you take the helm?
It was beginning of 2017, so March of 2017. So we went right at 2 years of finding out that we had it, going through the process of redoing everything, and then re-entering the market. Back at the end of 15 and into 16, and then took over in 17. And just, like I say, took the baton from Paul and just kind of ran as fast as I could, to the point where, and we kind of talked about this earlier. So when you're back now and you're now looking at new markets and new products, and God, is this the time you want me to step away?
Yeah.
because this was not on my radar to start with. And so just because it's the right time doesn't mean it's the right time. Just because you hit a certain age doesn't mean that you stop. And so I kind of wrestled with that. And at the same time, I shared with the board that eventually, we were getting closer to it. And so we actually went for a couple more years through the process of naming my successor at the time. And I was real happy with they named Jimmy Lahorn, who was a gentleman that I actually interviewed and hired back when I was in Oklahoma.
Wow.
And he's doing phenomenal now.
That's
so
amazing.
It's fun to hear and see. And I can call him and harass him the best I can, but he just
get some free ice cream.
Yeah, that's right. And truly, that's the inspiration of the book too. I had a lady call me from Austin that worked for a publishing company and said, "Hey, are you thinking about writing a book?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking about it." I mean, it kind of been in my head. I started with a paper in my career, and I thought, well, why not end with a book?
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, if you're going to do it, now's the time, because when you retire, you become irrelevant." I thought, well, that's not very.
Yeah, wait a minute.
What's up with that? But I like it.
Relevant?
Yeah, I know. I really do think, though, and I heard this, and I think it's so true. You don't retire, you refire. Mm-hmm. And this last scoop, actually, I think of what I'm doing now and being able to not just share my faith, but talk about, turning fear into faith, and however God wants to use me. I still have gas in the gas tank, or I still have ice cream in the bowl, or however you want to say it, because I don't think you quit serving God in the way you can until He says, okay, time to come home. And so
you strike me as a type guy that's busier in retirement than you were.
My wife asked me. She's sitting right over here. She don't let her answer that question.
Nodding her head. Mm-hmm.
There's no. We kind of laughed. Maybe one day I will retire.
That's right.
But this past year, I think we were in 12 different states, traveling around, and just anywhere we can serve in whatever capacity. I've tried to make myself available to do that. And it can be companies that are dealing with Listeria. Yeah. It could be as simple as just reading about fear and faith. We've talked to some organizations that I never would have dreamed I would have called. Yeah. And so it's not about Ricky Dickson, I promise you. It's a lot about ice cream, but hopefully even more importantly, it's about Jesus Christ and being able to find faith and do away with the fear, turning that fear into faith.
I love that.
It's a great book.
I have another question here, and we can land the plane. But no, we can go as long as you want. But
I'm good.
My question is: so when you look back at your career, did it go now? When you look back, did it seem to go very quick, or did it seem to go up and down? Because I mean, the reason I ask that is there may be people in their career right now, and they're going, we still got a few hills to climb. Yeah. But looking back, did it go quick? And then my follow-up question to that is, your grandkids, what kind of legacy do you want to leave to them? What kind of legacy was important to you as you were moving into retirement, for them to say that's grandpa, what was that mark that you wanted to leave for them?
Yeah, both great questions. My first thought was quick. And when I say that, it was just an incredible journey with a lot of turns and twists along the way. And so I would say, though, if you're at a place that you're feeling stale, just know that God is shaping, molding, and making you for something if you allow that process to take place. And I go back to that, sitting on the end of the bed of a hotel thinking, and my career hadn't been very long, and yet here I'm already putting limits. Like, okay, if this doesn't happen by then I'm going to take my toys and go home. Yeah. I've just learned that God, if you'll just trust Him, is shaping and preparing you for what He has planned. And if you mess that process up, you're not in the position to be used on the way He would want you to be used, or the way He plans for you to be used. So once you get to that, and that's when things don't make sense to me, in all honesty, okay, I've done all I can. I don't like where I'm at. Yeah. But at the same time, there's a bigger picture, and I don't see it, but I'm going to trust you. Yeah. That's what's helped me along the way. Yeah. Because there were some definitely quiet times. It wasn't necessarily I want to say always fun or always serious, but at the same time, knowing that you're being molded for the kingdom, and believe me, I had a lot of fear, and I am a sinner without any question. So there's a lot of mistakes. I've talked a lot about things. These things worked out good, but there's a lot of thumping that has gone along that God has picked the clay up and put it back on the mound.
That's a great,
let's start this over again.
That's a great message.
So,
I love that. And how about legacy?
Legacy, it's one of the reasons, and I think Mark Batterson, who I love to death, we've talked about as an author and pastor, it says you write a book for your great-great-grandkids, because they won't ever maybe even get to meet you. To just to stay faithful in whatever it is, whether it be a season or for a life. And for me, luckily, with Bluebell, it was for a career.
That's incredible.
But at the same time, and again, I'll tell new teams that come in, I'll look around the room and say, some of y'all I'll see 10 years from now at the 10-year reunion. Others, I want to know how you're doing at other careers that you're at. But just go where you're supposed to be and be all you can be in that position. If this is just a step in that process, then make it a great step.
That's a great message.
So go from there.
Amazing. Anything else for you, Parker?
No, that's good.
That's good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ricky, thanks so much for joining the show.
Well,
it's incredible having you. Anything else you want to share?
No, this is.
I think you summed it up so well right there.
Talk about ice cream.
Yeah. That's right. I guess we never got your favorite flavor. I mean, I think the people probably want to know that.
I always say homemade vanilla because it's like my Hall of Fame flavor. If you don't have homemade vanilla, I mean, you can do that with so many. My wife and I have been pounding salted caramel brownie, which now
my wife would love
seeing
that.
it's not out right now, and I keep calling. Come on, guys, don't make me come back.
What's it called?
Salted caramel brownie, and I don't know if it'll be out this year. I need to find out, but you can get it at ice cream parlors. They still sell it in the big
So
thing.
is it one of those flavors we were talking about, the peppermint that comes out just once a year? But is it that type flavor?
It was out in a half gallon for a while.
Okay.
And it rotates. A lot of flavors will rotate in and out, depending upon how well it does. And that's what's fun about ice cream is you'll hit one that's people will call and swear you made it for them. This one's mine. I know you made it for me. Now you're not making it anymore. Well, you didn't buy enough.
So that is a personal offense.
Yeah. But there's so many good ones. Millennium Crunch is way up there.
What's that one?
Millennium Crunch. For the Millennium back, we didn't know
if we'd make it past it.
And here it is, 25 years later. But it's got everything you can think of, the walnuts, the pecans, and the almonds, and caramel chunks and chocolate chips, and kind of a vanilla-based.
That's awesome.
I didn't do a very good job on the base, so I can hear R&D in my ear right now saying, no.
Come on.
But there's just, it's fun.
That's awesome.
Creating flavors.
Well, Ricky, thank you so much for joining the show. And so where can listeners find the book?
All right. Well, the book is available on Amazon. It's the simplest and easiest way to go.
There you go.
One scoop at a time. Yes.
There it is. I love that cover.
Amazing. That was the first flavor that I ever tried. So
really?
Strawberry. We didn't, again, have it in Waco. So we had a friend and I got in a car and we drove to Temple, which they got it out of Austin. And I got a half gallon of strawberry and put it in between us in the car with 2 spoons.
There we go.
By the time we got to Waco, that half gallon was gone.
That's awesome. Well, Ricky, thank you so much for joining the show. And listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of No Longer Nomads. We'll be back next week. We drop episodes on Tuesday at 5 a.m. If you want to give the show a 5-star review, that helps a ton. And if you want to pass on to a friend, word of mouth is the best way we can grow together. And make sure to give us a like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.